That was it. Hi all, my name's Harry. I'm from P1. I know usually the people that joined our Time and Money series are used to seeing James, our CEO, but as this topic was focused on marketing, it was felt that having the head of marketing was more applicable in this scenario. So yeah, so I'm going to be, first of all, I'll introduce Anna from PLOTT. So PLOTT are brand and web specialists who work exclusively with financial advisors, planners, and wealth managers. And the reason they're here and why I know them, they work with some of our clients as well, and they do some really impressive work. And really exciting work in terms of how they deliver websites and brands that really stand out. But wanting to focus on the power of brand. So Anna, now I'll let you introduce yourself. We'll just keep going. There's a few more people joining, but yeah, Anna, over to you.
Oh, good morning. Good morning. I'm Anna from PLOTT, and I've got my co-pilot with me today, who's Mark. Mark, do you want to say a quick hello?
Yeah, not AI co-pilot, an actual human co-pilot.
Well, wingman.
Wingman. Let's go for wingman. That's good. So yeah, I work with Anna. I do I write stuff. So brand frameworks, copywriting, web copy, all of that good stuff.
Yeah. So, should we get started, Harry?
Yep, sounds good, Anna.
I'm hoping everybody can see my screen. You guys can see it, can't you? Just before I start, just check that the tech actually works.
Yep.
Yeah, you can. So we are going to be talking, as you can see, about sausages today. But before we dive into branding, food, cows, and everything else on our menu today, I just wanted to start with a bit of a personal story about how we came to work with so many advisors and money folk like you guys. So 8 years ago, my father died, and we'd only ever met his advisor twice. So when he passed, my brother and I found our own advisor, someone we felt we could build a relationship with. The advisor we chose is now our client, and we've helped him build a brand that felt modern, human, and clear. And it's certainly one of our favourites. And recently, he sold a minority stake to a Swedish investment firm at a significantly higher value than he expected. And that's why we're here today. I'll let you just read the quote from Richard. We've now helped multiple advisors with their brands and websites because brand work isn't cosmetic. It's very much commercial. It shapes your growth, your inquiry numbers, and ultimately your exit value. Which brings me on to two stats that should make all advisors sit up straight. Small firms with a clear, memorable brand grow 2 to 3 times faster. That's not a little bit faster, that's multiples faster. And a strong brand can add 20 to 30% to your exit value. Brand isn't decoration, that's your EBITDA. And on that appetizing note, let's see what's on the menu today.
Yes, we've got a menu slide down here. Yes, fantastic. So there is a bit of a food theme, hence the menu. Hence we got Richard to design. Richard, our creative director, and he designed this menu for us just to set us up. We're going to be talking about why confused minds say no, how building a brand helps brands go from confusion to clarity, and why your website is so important. And before we get into that, I've got some questions for those of you who want to play along to help us generate some stats. So to take part, you just need to visit menti.com and put that number in. You can do it on a browser, you can do it on your phone. The first question is just asking you how you feel about your brand now, but as we go through, I'll let you all know when there's a new question to answer. And I'm going to pop that detail in the chat as well, because once we move past this slide, you'll know where to find it.
Yeah, it'd be nice to do that. Yeah, it'd be nice to gather a little bit of data from you guys. It's a bit of fun, really, but it's always good to get a sense of kind of where you are.
So they're just popping that in the chat for you all. Close the chat window. And we'll move. Shai, you already answering it. Thank you, guys.
Oh,
so
brilliant.
We're going to start with the starters. Confused minds say no. We've recently written an article that's going to be appearing in Money Marketing on the Netflix effect. So look out for that. But here's a really quick explanation. Once upon a time, you'll all remember that Netflix entered the marketplace as a big disruptor. They took on Blockbuster and they won, and they changed how we all watch TV. But with all that success, money and data started to roll in, something changed. They started to listen to the algorithm and not the artists. They now follow one rule: do more of what works. To shareholders, it always sounds like a good idea. It's risk aversion. We all understand that. But now everything looks too similar and nothing really stands out. As the Guardian called it, a sea of gourmet cheeseburgers. It's familiar and polished, but it's forgettable. Told you there'd be loads of food. And the same thing is happening to financial advice because of consolidation and AI. There's a risk that everything will end up looking the same and brands won't stand out.
Remember, private equity loves efficiency, not originality, and AI tools optimize for what everyone else is doing, which quickly turns into the same words, same tone, same look, same content.
Yeah, we call it the boring beige buffet. The algorithms made Netflix dull, and we don't want to let that happen to your brand. But speaking of dull, here's Anna.
Ha ha ha. So the Netflix effect, when algorithms run the show, everything starts to look the same, polished, safe, beige. But that sameness comes at a cost. I told you there'd be cows, which brings us on to the extraordinary cost of being dull. In a nutshell, researchers tested a bunch of ads. One of them was literally 20 seconds of cows doing absolutely nothing, like cows do. And here's the scary bit. 75% of the ads scored worse than the cows. And the serious point behind this is being dull is expensive. The research shows you'll have to spend up to 10 times more to get the same results as something interesting.
Just
So
to jump in there, Anna,
yeah,
as well.
on.
So when we talk about spending, and I think this is for like financial advice firms to be aware of, not everyone's going to be spending like monetary amount on your ads or your thing, but it's also in your time. So as an advisor, if you're not clear on how you're messaging and you're communicating, that investment and that spend is actually in your time, that you're sinking your time, your resource into dull sort of marketing or copy that doesn't attract your clients. So just in case people are thinking, well, I haven't got the sort of advertising spend, or I'm not spending on ads, it's not just the monetary investment. It's actually, if you're investing your own time, your resources to like creating this content or creating your brand.
Nicely put, Harry. I'd also say, I mean, I use this term as sort of a bit of an overall, vision, but also the other reason is, even if you're spending on digital marketing or any way that you're getting your name or your brand out there, you can kind of see now that you don't want to be like the cows. You simply, brands, particularly smaller businesses, they really, really can't afford to be dull. I'm just going to lead on with kind of, dull doesn't engage, dull doesn't differentiate, dull doesn't convert, and dull is expensive.
It certainly is. Sorry, Anna, I'm just going to interrupt you there, but we see a lot of this in our line of work, and we say in the office that we're trying to improve the world one brand at a time, and it really is just a question of de-dulling.
I like that word. You make that up.
It's not going to be the last time I make up a word, and it isn't. I'm going to introduce another question, Anna, if I may. So we got the next question. This is to cow or not to cow. So let's continue with that. The next slide will be up now.
Yeah, so while you're chewing on that question, I wanted to show just 3 adverts here. So I found this beauty of beigeness in the Chamber of Commerce magazine this month. For levels of dullness, I have to say this is certainly up there with the cows, even though it is a pig this time, a money pig. But what I wanted to say here was what I'd say to the same guys here is that if people feel nothing, they do nothing, and you simply can't afford to bore your audience. Next up, this ad had a different kind of problem. You guys may have seen this in money marketing because it was all over the press. It might be a bit of a dated ad, but you can kind of see where I'm going with this. It's at the other end of the emotional spectrum where you don't really want to be either. This one generates far too much emotion, probably along the lines of disgust, anger and contempt, though. You're probably better off being the cows at this point. But what I do want to show you now is somebody that's in our industry, the biggest players that have really hit the spot. And this is and despite what you might think of SJP, this advert has done an amazing job for their first national campaign. And I'd say that it's done an amazing job, not just for themselves, but for the whole industry. The brief was to instill pride and confidence in the value of advice for UK consumers. And I think they've done a great job. This is a really touching piece of creative. It's inspired by real stories and the crucial and positive role that advisors play. It's simple, it's emotive, and it doesn't half make you feel warm and fuzzy inside. It's a bit like a John Lewis advert, really, which leads us nicely on to.
Well, it leads us on to the opposite of simplicity, which is jargon. Now, you've all done much better since Consumer Duty reared its head in simplifying the messages, but we still think there's way to go, and we still see a lot of jargon everywhere. So the three main problems that we see all the time is too many jargon-filled websites, copy that's overwritten to the point of complexity, and much too much marketing bullshit. And we all know it when we see it. So just to be clear, this next slide is some made-up nonsense. We're not naming shaming. We didn't pick this. I wrote this, and I'm really proud of it. It's awful. I'll let you all digest that for a second. But again, you've seen things like this. So the reason this is a real problem is because I'm going to hit you with a couple more stats. 49% of people say their attention span is shorter than it used to be. And the average time someone spends on your website is just 53 seconds. So people are scanning for information. They don't have time to read too deeply. So if you're confusing people, it's too late. You've already lost them.
And our final point for this section is me, myself, and pie.
Yeah, it better be more food, Anna.
We just wanted to shoehorn in a pie here.
Yeah. Anyway, so it's speaking too much about yourself. It's me, myself, and I, of course. So you'll have heard these phrases as well. We are a leading financial advice company. Our financial planning and wealth management services. There's nothing wrong with those in the sense that they're true, but there is a problem with it, and that's that people are only going to engage with what's relevant to them. If they have to work things out for themselves, well, many won't bother. So attention is short and patience shorter. Anything that feels like effort will get ignored. It's not arrogance or stupidity. It's just human nature. So speaking too much about yourself can come at the cost of clarity and, of course, potentially the cost of clients.
So summary, confused and bored minds say no. And just to recap the 4 common problems that we see: you can't afford to be dull, be more interesting than the cows, avoid complex jargon, and stop talking about yourself.
Yeah, I'm going to put another question up now, everybody. And this is really just a question of how much you feel that your brand currently stands out amongst the competition.
Right.
And while they're putting the question up, guys, I think the stop talking about yourself is, we all do it. I've written several websites, and you naturally frame things from your perspective. And it's very easy to talk about what the benefits that you offer, rather than what the benefits that the person viewing your website receives. So when writing a website or copy, it's really hard to naturally do it, but you need to understand, why would someone come to your website and what are they trying to solve? And I think we naturally talk about ourselves in a manner that we're like trying to instill trust. So like Mark's slide there is, we've got 30 years of financial experience. That's great, but that's never a requirement that I've looked for when I've been looking for a financial advisor. And I think a lot of the time when I think about how I'm marketing, is I think about my experience for other services that I've gone. And when I've like looked for plumbers or looked for certain things, I think about the journey that I've gone there and what's helped me get there. But it's rarely when people talk about what exactly that they do or what they offer, that like when we talk about like it's sort of like logical solutions, and what like Mark and Anna are really focusing on is talk about the emotional benefits and talk about it to the people, not just from your own perspective, but think about the person reading it.
It's a, Harry, you've hit the nail on the head there. I mean, obviously, we've seen this a hell of a lot, and most of the clients that tend to come to us are kind of in this state where they've written their brand around what they do, which is great. But I think with attention spans being shorter, they're just generally being so much noise out there. We've got to be more problem solving. We've got to flip the narrative. It's not hugely different, but it's just putting yourselves in the client's shoes and making the client the hero, which we're going to be talking about shortly, about how you start to change this. And we've got lots of tips here, and we're going to show you lots of examples of how we've done this with other clients that we work with. I'm going to flip forward on the presentation though. And why does any of this matter? Why do you even need to bother doing your brand? Why do you need to bother looking at your copy? Why do you need to bother doing any of this? And we'll tell you why. I mean, I'm not the egg analogy here again. We're not teaching you to suck eggs. We know that you already know that the great wealth transfer is going on. 7 trillion is expected to pass to the next generation by 2030. Couple of others here. This is exactly what I did at the beginning of the presentation. Remember, I spoke about switching financial advisors, and it's not just me. It's loads of next gen millionaires who plan to replace their advisor. It used to be about 60% when I used this term about 5 years ago. But recently, Capgemini have done it, and it's actually gone up to 81%. That is a huge number. And the same with the great female wealth transfer, the horizontal wealth transfer. We're seeing so many women now inheriting money, and they're not staying with their husband's financial advisor. They're switching too. And this is the one that really makes me sit up, and the same for all of you guys here. There's going to be nearly 1,000 less advice firms from when there was in 2022 to 2025. You know, we know consolidation is driving this trend, and when private equity enters the room, it often spells, you know, trouble for clients. You know, I saw this firsthand last week. I was interviewing a client who left their advisor because the firm had been acquired. Their exact concern: independence, culture change, and being treated like a number in a big machine. And I'm guessing that story will probably ring a bell for most of the people here. So this presents a huge opportunity for smaller firms to kind of snap up those type of clients if they get the brands and websites right. So how do we go from the beige buffet to something more palatable, something colourful, memorable, and actually appetising?
This is where we get to the meat and potatoes. I'm not going to stop with the food either. Right, so it's the question on the screen now is what everybody really cares about, and that's Harry was talking about earlier on, is what's in it for me. So what is it that I'm looking for as a client when I visit your website? And the reason people think that way is called the survive and thrive instinct. In other words, if your brand doesn't help people move forward from where they are, sorry, I'll rephrase that. If your brand does help people move forward from where they are, they'll pay attention. If it doesn't, they won't. People don't buy numbers and performance. They're not interested in methodology, tech, or your simple 15-step process. They care what changes for them. And that's the survive and thrive instinct. It's a phrase from the book, Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller, and it's the backbone of branding. It's our secret recipe, and we're going to share it with you with this 90-second story brand framework explanation. Please don't time me because I haven't timed this. I'm just guessing. Let's be honest. So, right, the beauty of the framework is that humans are predictable, so it works for everybody. People are drawn to clarity and they run from confusion. Clarifying your message is hard work, so a simple narrative structure, hero, villain, guide, success, allows you to strip it back. Now, we've simplified this even further for today, but it's a very simple process that helps you go from something complex to something simple. Essentially, it allows you to strip it back. And how stories work has been understood for decades. As perhaps the most famous example of the hero's journey is Star Wars, even though I'm told there are people who've never seen it. Even if you've somehow avoided Star Wars, you'll still know the story beats because stories have been well understood for hundreds of years. There's a reason most stories follow a similar structure. And that's the reason story brand works. It works because stories work. They help you remember. And we've simplified this a bit, like I said, but put simply, the first chap there is Luke Skywalker. He's the hero. He's the man with the goal, the dream, and the problem that needs to be solved. That's your client. Darth Vader there is the villain. He's the problem that stands in the way. For your clients, the villain might be tax, pension savings, or simply feeling overwhelmed. Obi-Wan Kenobi is the guide. He's the wise figure who helps the hero. And that's you. You're not the hero of the story. It's your client's story. You're the one who has a plan and guides them to success. And success in the case of Star Wars is destroying the Death Star, which is that last image. For your clients, that could be financial independence, early retirement, protecting their family, all the things that look like success to your clients. So there you go. Story brand helps you structure your message exactly like that. Again, hero, problem, guide, success. It shows you where you fit in that process, and it shows you where your client fits in that process and what they're looking for, which is success. Messaging becomes much more clear, more engaging, and more memorable. And more importantly, it becomes something your clients can see themselves in.
Yeah, this is where it really resonates with me. Essentially, stories for me put everything in the right order so the brain doesn't have to work too hard to understand what's going on. And remember, the more simple and predictable the message, the easier it is for the brain to digest, which leads us nicely onto the grunt test.
This is one of my favourite slides.
And me.
Just saying. Right, with new information, your brain has one job: to save calories. We're going back to the food metaphor, of course, but what it means is this. It means if your message takes too much effort to decode, it will get ignored. It's a survival instinct. It's not rudeness. So even if you have the best service on offer, you'll still lose out to the firm that explains things faster and more clearly. So here's an example of the grunt test. If a caveman looked at your website for 5 seconds, could he grunt the answers to 3 things? What do you do? How does it make my life better? What do I do next? If the answer is no, your message is costing people calories and you've lost them. Remember, people have short attention spans. This is why the best financial planning service can lose out to the firm that simply explains things faster or clearer. Or to put that more clearly, people don't buy the best products. They buy the ones they can understand the fastest. This is where StoryBrand really earns its keep. It's simple, it's powerful, and it's a secret recipe for helping clients clarify their message and grow the business.
So my turn. So we're moving on to chips now, one of Harry and I's favourite metaphors. So once you pass the grunt test, once your message is simple enough that it doesn't cost the audience too many unnecessary calories, the next step is giving something they can feel, the emotion that Harry talked about earlier. Remember the cows, we don't want to be dull. And this is where one of Harry's and mine's favourite concepts comes in. So again, sticking with food, sticking with McCann's. Recently, McCann won the Effectiveness Award for this brilliant 10-year campaign. We talked about how 75% of ads being so dull, we'd rather watch cows doing nothing. So what did McCain do to not slip into the beige buffet? So just for a bit of context, McCain was stuck in the commodity market. Customers were buying on price, choosing supermarket labels and discount chips. So what did they do? They didn't launch a new flavour, they didn't upgrade the potato, and they didn't slap on a shiny new logo. They invested something much more powerful. McCain's answer was to invest in their brand with long-term emotional storytelling, real families, real dinners, real life, nothing flashy, just human. Slide here. But it worked. By staying consistent and telling stories people saw themselves in, they built brand strength and reduced price sensitivity, aka price elasticity for marketing geeks out there. Their sales grew way beyond their ad spend. Remember the cows again and the 10 times. So, and here's a bit of a brand building investment analogy. So you don't get rich from one deposit. You get rich from consistency, time, and compound interest. The more consistently you show up with the same message, the same story, the same feeling, the more your brand compounds in people's minds. That's why firms who invest in brand grow faster and sell more. It's basically long-term investing for your reputation. So moral of the story, strong brands compound. Same chips, stronger brand, better margins. And this is exactly what SJP have done. They've really done their homework, and I'm sure they've probably seen this campaign, and they're definitely playing the long game. They've really lent into emotional storytelling with their advert, and it means they can hold their ground on fees, as we know, and still attract clients, not because they're the cheapest and certainly not because they're the best, but because their story is easier to understand and it makes us feel warm and fuzzy inside. I know you talked about this, haven't you, Harry? I thought you might throw a few words in here.
Yeah, no, I love this. I mean, the reason I like point people to this McCain study is it's a study like this. Our industry loves evidence or evidence-based. And McCain's example was a really good one and it's relatable to our industry right now, is that while your natural instinct to regain market or sales is to cut costs, by investing in their story and the actual emotional relationship, which I know sounds crazy, they're chips, but it shows you how powerful it can be. They were able to increase their price and they still took their consumers with them. And I think, Anne and I have discussed this, that it's so relevant, especially when there's like Next Wealth report about 37% of advisors are looking to increase their fees in the next 12 months, that when people have a strong emotional relationship with their brand, then it makes them more receptive to price increases. They don't treat that as a point to then go and look elsewhere. And I think that's crucial. And I think, and sorry to interrupt, Anna, this is your presentation.
No, go for it, Harry, because we talked about this a lot.
Yeah, the thing what we talk about in brand and marketing for like viewing is your brand's every touch point, from website to your logo to how you deliver your messaging to your brochure. It's your brand's not a logo, which I think when you're not from marketing or like maybe it's not your main concern, it's really easy to just focus on the idea that brand's a simple like visual element. It's how you deliver all of your content and the feeling and the response that you get from your clients. But yeah, so I'd say I'd go and look up this chips research, but it's probably not that interesting to people that are outside of my interest.
I don't know,
But
but if I disagree, Harry. If you're looking to grow and you want to potentially sell your business in the years to come, this really is a masterclass, isn't it, in marketing effectiveness? Whether we took, I mean, obviously with this, guys, it was TV advertising, but it transcended across every different channel that they work with. And this emotional storytelling is a massive drive. I mean, we all know we've seen all the Christmas adverts that are coming out, aren't we? And they all lean into this because they know that people respond to it, and they know that if they can make us feel warm and fuzzy and have a positive feeling about the brand, it will start to chip away at us, and hence they can start charging more. We mentioned about SJP, didn't we, in economies of scale, and how potentially, that might end up driving the price down. But when you build a really, really strong brand, you don't need to do that, do you? I mean, McCain's are an absolute, like I said, masterclass in this, and we kind of want to be more like McCain's and less like the cows.
Yeah, and to continue what you were just saying there, Harry, as well. There's anyone that's bought a website will have heard people waffle about UX and user experience. And obviously, we make websites as well. But what we know is that the user experience, user might not be quite the right word, but user experience is the whole brand. So it's every touch point, and the experience of watching those ads by McCain, and the experience of obviously enjoying the food. All of that's branding. And it's partly product, but like how it makes you feel. And what they've done is they've managed to connect well to that feeling, and it is all about feelings. But just moving on, Anna, what's better than chips?
Well, just wait, I'll just wait and see.
Just wait and see. Sausages is what's better than chips. All right. So if McCain is the perfect reminder that people don't just buy the product, they buy the feeling wrapped around it. So that brings us beautifully to one of my favorite food analogies in branding. You all know this, it's a cliche by now. No one wants to know how the sausage is made because sausage meat isn't appetizing. But the sizzle, now we're talking. It's the anticipation that something good is cooking. So in this analogy, the services are the meat, important, where everything you do is built on that. And like the meat, really nobody wants to know. But the sizzle, that's the anticipation you're going to help them, that they're going to be looked after, and that something good is coming. See, McCain didn't sell potatoes. They sold the feeling of a family dinner. That was their sizzle. So we've got a couple of examples here, the difference between sausage and sizzle. I'm going to read these out anyway, but just you have a look at them while we're here. So selling the sausage, we offer pension consolidation, tax-efficient portfolios, and lifetime cash flow modeling. Selling the sizzle, we help you retire earlier with confidence and spend more time doing what you love without worrying about money. So in financial services, it's not about what you do or how you do it, important though those things are, it's the good feelings you provide. That's the sizzle. So I have a new question coming up for you all, and that is, oh, hang on, and that is me pressing the wrong button. There you go, selling the sizzle or the sausage. The new question for you all.
I'll just leave you with that for 1 second as I switch on to the next slide. And what's better after sausage and chips, but moving on to the dessert. So this is the sweet treat, is going to be our pro tips for actually helping you build a story brand. So let's take a look at what this looks like in real life. We're going to show you a few examples from some of our really high performing clients who've seen impressive growth since, refreshing their brands and websites. Our first principle is simple, and what we've been talking about.
So we're talking about helping the hero, and this is Beckett's. For Beckett's, we put the point of view of the client as the focus point. So really putting the website in the shoes of the client, at the centre of the story. So both of our examples here came to us with waffly messages and cliched images. We see it everywhere. Again, not naming and shaming. It's perfectly natural, but it would never have passed the grunt test. So we flipped those narratives. And now both websites open with powerful video headers showing their clients, not themselves. And for Beckett's, as I've said, the theme was putting ourselves in their shoes. And for Plutter's, it was being by their side, essentially on the journey. They both create the same effect. They show how happy people living the kind of life their clients might aspire to. And at the end of the day, everyone is searching for a better life. They want more freedom, more time, more peace of mind. These visuals speak directly to that aspiration. You're showing them the successful outcome. You're showing them the Death Star being destroyed, essentially, but nicer.
Well, this is what a great story brand does. It burns very few calories, passes the grunt test, and makes us feel good. Oh, I've got a few words from Dom actually as well.
Good old Dom.
Yeah, I'll just leave those on screen again. You know, we've got so many great testimonials, but I'm just trying to pick a few just to kind of, you know, set the tone. He obviously talks about what the process that we went through very briefly and kind of the outcome. So tip number two is that we need to stand out visually. I'm sure you might recognise this, Harry, but I'll mention who it is in a minute. So we're circling back to the whole dullness problem again here, because nothing will drag your brand into the beige buffet faster than looking like everybody else. And the pictures matter just as much as the words. Great brands have great visuals, strong photography, clear illustration, personality, tone. I'm going to show you two bold examples from our clients here. Remember, standing out doesn't mean you have to be loud, gimmicky or outrageous. But for Dan at Five Horizons, that did mean being pink, didn't it?
that did mean being pink. And Five Horizons is a Pearl Jam reference, I understand. I don't know Pearl Jam very well, but Dan does. And so it was a way of getting some, what's the word I'm looking for, Anna? It was something. Yeah, his personality's right. It was different, though, isn't it? And what we created with Dan really was something different. It gave us license to push. And the point is both that it's bold and really reflects Dan himself. So there's loads of his personality in it.
Well, he was a startup essentially as well, a new DFM in the market, and he needed to kind of hit the ground running, and he needed something that didn't look corporate and like everybody else that's already out there. And obviously Harry's on your platform, isn't he? So
yeah, we work with Dan, and I've always admired his website.
Yeah, no, it's really
did
nice.
really well. I didn't. No, sorry, Karen.
I was going to say slightly different with Dan, because he's not really going out to you and me as consumers. He's not this, this is more of a B2B offering, but it's just, again, to give a bit of a flavour that we don't have to be dull here. The other one I wanted to show that I've got in here is 70 Financial Planning, based up in Harrogate. These guys had an old school masculine brand. It was really, think SJP when they had the lions. It was
kind of scary, I thought.
Yeah, it was scary. It was like SJP was before the rebrand. Yeah. And they had quite an aging client base. They wanted something that appealed to a broader mass affluent audience. So what we did was we introduced a new colour palette, quirky illustrations. They've even got an online game if you want to go and have a look. You can also look on our website at some of the case studies. This one's up there. And I guess really what the moral of the story again is here. Is moral of the story: show personality, lean into your strengths, use visuals, colour and imagery to reflect who you are and who you serve. And please don't sound like every other advice firm. This is where knowing your customer becomes everything.
Yeah, it's also how you avoid cows, and there's not a cow in sight on those two websites we've been talking about. So tip number 3 for you all then is keeping it real. We use this in the office all the time. Authenticity, essentially, is what we're talking about, and authenticity will win every single time. If you want people to trust them, show them something they can actually trust, which is real humans. And that's why team photography like Beckett's here is so important. These are both great examples. We're going to show you London Wealth as well, which is a brand that revolves in part around an illustration style, but also very much features their real team in their real location. And they're very, very candid photos, and it really gives you a sense of being there with them. Beckett's, they wanted the best team ever, the best team page ever. They've got the best team ever, of course. They wanted the best team page ever. And so we've given them, when you roll over their individual images, there's an image of them like a normal bio photo, and then there's an image of them smiling or being slightly silly, and it's fun. The tone is professional and gets across their qualifications really well, which is part of what you want a team page to do. But it also has a little bit of a slightly wry sense of humour that we managed to write for them. So all in all, really pleased with that. Go take a look at Beckett's website if you haven't already.
Yeah, Beckett's is a great example. Also, what Beckett's understood as well, which although your client should always be the hero of the story, what they also knew was that the guide was important. And also, team pages are the most viewed pages on any website, no matter what industry we work in, no matter who we look at. Team pages are the ones that people look at, because if you're gonna trust people with your life savings, I think people would rather see who they're dealing with. So again, that's something important to remember as well. Although the hero of the story comes first, having really well shot professional photography of yourselves is really important.
Yeah, people want to meet the guide. People want to meet Obi-Wan Kenobi, and that's your Obi-Wan Kenobi right there. So let them. And one of the reasons this works so much better than stock photography. Now, you'll if you go and look, probably not London Wealth, but if you go and look at some of our other websites, we really carefully curate any stock photography we use, and we use it to support how the brand feels. But the authenticity comes through from the images, and if you're using stock photos poorly, it's fake, and people
We
will
never
spot back
see
a
that,
mile off.
Mark. We never see that on financial advisors' websites.
What? fake poor stock photography? No, of course not.
Thing is,
I would never suggest such a thing.
It's I mean, obviously we have moved on since the old couple on the yacht shots, but we do see some shockers, and we also see the same imagery across sites. And again, this comes in with a little bit of A, you don't really have time to do it possibly for yourselves, and B, it just doesn't give the right feel if you have a completely mismatched suite of photography. You're spending a lot of time to build trust, and it completely erodes that really quickly. I think if anything, as a tip, I'd say stray away from stock. Just make sure you have a professional photographer in to take really good team shots of yourself. And also, what I have put down here as well, I'm not sure it's coming on to the next bit. What we've also done here is if you haven't got a really nice office, go and use a really nice coffee shop or something. Just ask them if you buy a few coffees or lunch, and they'll let you use it. Which takes us on nicely. So we talk about having photography as well. So this talks us on to really telling your client stories. If you want to build trust fast, nothing really beats this. Your case studies are your strongest proof because they show the role you play, i.e. as the guide. These stories really demonstrate exactly how you've helped the hero succeed. These are really nice ones. Fraser James are one of our clients that have gone from a very a standing start 5 years ago to having over 100 million under management now. This is a really nice quote from Chris at Fraser James. They've also recently been on the Financial Planning podcast. So if any of you guys want to hear about how they've developed their brand and the things that they've done and the story behind them, it's really interesting. I always think that sometimes clients underestimate how powerful client stories are. I mean, I've spent quite a lot of time interviewing clients on behalf of clients, and the stories of transformation are so emotive, and how you make such a huge difference in people's lives. I mean, they really are gold dust. I mean, whether or not you do them as video, or I'm going to show you next. As Hartsfield have done them here recently, we've just done this. This is really hot off the press. What we've done with Hartsfield is they didn't necessarily want to do video because the clients didn't feel comfortable with it. So what we did here was we went to their house and we interviewed them, and we took a really nice suite of photography, which means if we've got human imagery of the team and we have this imagery, we've now got everything we need to redo their brand and redo their website. We've just started with the client agreement here. And also, go on, Mark.
Sorry, I was saying more important. You came back with 30 photographs of their dogs. That's really way more important.
They did. They had fabulous dogs that we photographed too, which I know are going to go down really well with their brand. But also, what it means is you can use these all over the place, whether or not, I mean, how boring can a client agreement be? But if suddenly we interject these stories, and we've just, I was hot off the press last week, I was down interviewing two business owners as well on their behalf. And these really nice stories, transformative stories around how they've helped, are just a gold dust really for the brand. Authentic stories, genuine emotion, are very persuasive, as we know. People see themselves in stories. It's the logic behind the McCain's family dinners and SJP's brand. When you show real people living real moments, your audience leans in, they recognise it, and when they recognise it, they trust it and they buy it. Yeah, which leads us nicely onto
me interrupting you again. Yes, you're welcome. I was going to say, really, branding is stories all the way down. So we start with the story brand, and as we borrow through that, we get to client stories, and really they're so memorable and they're so good, these stories, and you'll have hundreds of them for all the clients you've helped over the years. And it really is a question of going out there and making the time to ask, or getting someone like Anna to go and do it for you, which is what Hartsfield sensibly did. Anyway, so our final point, and honestly one of the most important, is the compounding effect of long-term investment in branding. Consistency is king. It builds familiarity. It signals reliability before a client has ever even worked with you. So we give every single client a brand toolkit, which is on the screen now, and it shows, if anyone else who works on the brand, even themselves or another agency, you can hand over a brand toolkit and make sure that you're getting consistency across all of your digital assets, your social, your website, your print. Very, very helpful. So clear rules, clear language, clear assets, so that every touch point tells the story the same way, and it tells it every time. There's a couple of really nice examples. This one's Sedula Wealth and Macbeth there.
I was just going to say, think back to the chips. You know, they didn't hop from message to message or reinvent themselves at every campaign. What they did was they picked a story, they stuck with it, and they built recognition over time until it paid them back in pricing power. That's what consistency does.
Like, and to lean into that consistency and what Anna and Mark are talking about is, again, if you think about your experience as a consumer, how you recognize brands and how the more consistent that brand is in their like imagery and the way they communicate, the quicker you recognize them and the less that you have to see of their brand. Like if you think of some of the biggest brands in our like in the world, I'm not saying that all of the financial advice firms on this call are about to get to that size, but if you think of things like McDonald's and the Golden Arches, you think of like Nike and the tick, you don't even have to see, like if I say just do it, you know that that's Nike. Like if you see the Golden Arches or even the phrase the Golden Arches, you know that that's McDonald's. Now, it's not to say that we're all about to build global brands, but it's taking the lessons that are from that using the same messaging, using the same style, like using the same brand. It's that important so that when your customers get given something from the post that's like from you, they know automatically it's you, that there's no concern that it's a scam. There's no concern that it's something, you know, if we start changing fonts or logos, then it just creates confusion. And exactly what we're about to talk about is that if you're creating confusion and going back to the calories, if we're making people have to think harder about what they're looking at, then you're losing their attention and creating concern. So it's all about that repetition and consistency. Sorry if you're just about to talk about that, guys. But what
the thing, I've worked at lots of agencies over the years. I mean, that's been my background, and you often get clients that want to swap, that we do one campaign, it's successful, then they want to completely change it. And we've always gone back to like the McCain's. I always want to say the McCain's example is the thing is people, you know, when there's so much noise out there, attention spans are shorter, and we're trying to build trust. That repetition that McCain's did was absolutely a masterclass in how you build a brand. It might feel a little bit boring, but it really, really isn't. And I think it doesn't matter whether you're a smaller business or a larger business, the lessons are the same, really. In fact, if anything, when you're smaller, being consistent is even more important because you haven't got the 10 times buying power that someone else has got to get over that. So, you know, so I think again, and again, you talked about them burning less calories, not confusing people sometimes. But I also understand that being simple is really difficult. I mean, you know, it's worth going to have a look at what we've done on our own finance website, because we found it really hard to do for ourselves. It's still not an easy task, distilling it down, but it's really important that you do.
Yeah, it's hugely worthwhile. Just with a marketing hat on as well. I mean, the shorthand has always been the 7 touch points that a client will go through on their journey to, you know, responding to a call to action and getting in touch, which is what we wanted to do. But of course, if each one of those touch points is inconsistent, they won't have the experience of making contact with your brand 7 times. It'll feel like making contact with 2, 3, 4, 5, at worst case 7 brands, and then you're losing out because they're not going to respond to that call to action. So that consistency really matters, and that's how the compounding works.
And we've got a couple of examples now, Mark, aren't you? You're going to show how we put all this together, aren't you?
Oh, I can't remember where we are, Anna.
Yeah, so we've covered the starters, the mains. So we've covered the starters, the sides, the mains, and dessert. Now all that's left, is the coffee at the end. Yeah,
there's the coffee at the end. Sorry, Anna. Right, so we've got to put it all together, and the main place you put it all together is on your website. So yes, as Anna said, we've covered the starters, the mains, the sides, and even the dessert, and now we're onto the coffee course. Well, why it really matters is we've talked about putting everything in the one place, and that's your website. It's the only place online that you fully control the content. You've got there's no pesky algorithms, there's no character limits, there's no platform rules. It's just what you want to say about your brand, if you keep it up to date and keep it consistent. So a strong, clear story brand with authentic photography, brilliant client stories, that's the goal. The warning, of course, is it can all be undone with a bad website. People, everyone's going to look at your website. When we're talking about the 7 points of contact, even if their first point of contact isn't your website, they're going to go and look at your website. I imagine we all do it. I certainly do. At least once, usually more. And that's why you can't separate performance of a website from the experience. Essentially, user experience and performance are completely inseparable. Slow pages, old information, security warnings, all of these things erode trust. And you can undo months of good work, and you can undo it in seconds because people make judgments about websites very, very quickly. What you say and how it feels have to match. That's consistency. So ask yourself, is your user experience smooth, reassuring, and modern, or is it a tangle of frustration? Is it confusing? Most of you will have a gut feeling about how you feel about your website. So I'm going to put up another question asking precisely that. Let's see if I can do it.
Exciting.
Did I lie about putting a website question up?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
Did you?
No, yeah, I'm lying about it. Yeah, forget that. There's no question about websites. What we have got is, I'm just going to wing it. It's fine. What we have got is, how do you feel about your brand based on your answer earlier on, and whether all the things that we've been talking about has given you pause to rethink it? So people are answering that now. Thank you. That worked.
Yeah, so we've reached the end of our menu today, and whilst you're enjoying the coffee, I'd just like to remind ourselves of the 3 courses. So for starters, we looked at getting out of the beige buffet. For the mains, we looked at story brand, clarity, and standing out. And for dessert, we looked at pro tips, we looked at visuals, we looked at people, we looked at stories, we looked at consistency, and why all this really matters to building a strong brand. So this is the moment at the end of the meal where everything settles, thoughts come together, and you decide whether you're coming back. So here's what I'd like to leave you with. In branding, just like dining, people remember how they feel, and they'll choose you based on feelings too, whether they're understood, guided, reassured. So here's what I'd like to leave you with. Don't serve beige, serve something memorable, something with flavour, and something unmistakably you. Put your client at the centre, tell your story clearly, show your humans, stand out visually, and stay consistent. And then we put them all together on the website, and that's the one place, the home of your brand, that does the heavy lifting. So final take home as well. Clarity plus humanity equals growth. That's your recipe for a brand that stands out, wins inquiries, and becomes genuinely irresistible. Thank you. It's been a pleasure being your chef today. That felt a bit
I'm gonna on that note, I'm gonna put up the final question as well, and this is where I'm gonna beg you all to give us a good review. Give us a good review. Or not. Give us an honest review.
Oh yes, that's right. Have we got any questions, Harry? Have we got any questions that you'd like to ask, or anybody within the webinar would like to ask whilst we're here?
Yeah, so to anyone to everyone watching, if you just want to put questions in the Q&A, I mean, questions from myself are: what are the most common pitfalls that you see when you review websites from advisors? Like, what's the most common things? And we all do it, but just out of interest, what do you see a lot of?
Mark, I'm going to let you do this because you do the brand scan. So we offer a service at PLOTT where people can, and this would be the same to everybody we're speaking to now. We offer a brand scan so we can look at where you are now and offer recommendations and tips for where you should be and what we, how we could probably work together. But go on, Mark, because you do.
Yeah, well, I mean, I feel like we had just been talking about this, but it is worth making the same point. I think when you land on people's websites and you see their homepage, now I used to build websites as well before they realized it was a bad idea to let me do it and got someone more talented. But when you land on a website, the first thing you see, I think the 2 things that we would say we see very, very consistently are either let's say fairly cliche stock photos, or sometimes photos of the outside of the office. And the other thing that goes alongside that would be some copy that strictly talks about what it is you do, i.e. we are this. And you do need to say that, but you also need to have something a bit more warm and inviting. So that's, I think, back in the day, it would be called above the fold. So the stuff that lands on the screen that you can see at once. that bit could be, let's say, quite underwhelming. And if you're not differentiating yourself there, that's such a huge part of that's 10 seconds or whatever of how long people are going to stay before they've made a judgment. And this isn't for me, or how do I tell the difference between this and the 5 other ones that I've got open on other tabs? That's the question. If it's not speaking directly to your needs, and honestly, because so much of the stuff out there isn't doing that particularly well, solving that problem gives you an immediate head start over the competition, I would say.
Yeah. No, that's insightful. I have a phobia of that stock photo of plants growing out of coins when I see
Oh
them.
my God.
That's my
The one with the hand in the tree.
Yeah, sometimes when I see that. But so sorry if anyone has it on this call right now, but yeah, that stock photo I've seen quite a few times. Yeah.
What I would say, what I would say is sourcing a really well curated stock photography. Again, all of this is time consuming. You guys are busy. I suppose the point I would make as well a little bit is it's when we tend to work with businesses generally that have gone from maybe having a bit of a startup website, a bit of a DIY one they've done themselves. Think about your clients. They've come from a background maybe of when they had less money, when they did it themselves on Vanguard or used Hargreaves. Ideally you do, ideally that, you go straight to a professional, but we totally understand that really sometimes, you start off with a DIY version. As your business builds, that's when you start to take a step back and use somebody else to come along and really help you develop that story and that kind of look and feel. And that's when your brand can really start to exponentially grow. We've seen that with a lot of clients over the years that we've worked with, that they've kind of done it themselves to begin with, and they've ended up in a little bit of a mess and it's not quite where they want to be. But I definitely recommend. But then we have other ones like Dan that came and said, I recognise the importance of brand from the very start. So it's almost kind of, where it's depends where clients are on their journey, budgets, and a multitude of other things, and how important they consider it as well, Harry.
Yeah, I think the other thing, like you said, with consistency and what you're saying, that like evolution of people's website, and it's something that we've witnessed in P1, is you think without a focus, you like iterate the brand, and then you sort of look from where you started and where you are now, and you're like, oh, I thought I was being consistent with these small changes, and actually I'm way from where I started. And that goes back to that. It's easy to do. Like as a marketer, I do it. I'm like, oh, shall I try this? And you think it's one change, and then all of a sudden you see it creeps into documents and different things, and all of a sudden that. And I think you're right when you talk about that. A lot of people do have a website to start, and you started someplace, and your business has grown, and that and you naturally change. We like to evolve. We like change, sort of, to see it. And the other thing, I think, for marketers, and going back to that consistency, we get bored of seeing the same thing all the time. So but you forget that your client doesn't live and breathe your brand, so that when they see it, they have to recognize it. Well, I think naturally, when you see it every day, you're like, well, maybe I could tweak that.
That can compound as well. That can compound confusion. And we see that a lot. Yeah. Sorry, Anna, go on.
No, I was going to agree with you again. It's that idea of, although consistency and repetition, are the hero here as well. I think what helps for clients is that most of the clients that we work with, once we go through this kind of, I'm going to say it's painful, because normally it's really enlightening and really insightful, and clients really enjoy going through this kind of almost this enlightenment phase of kind of working out who their clients are. Also, it helps if you have a niche. We love clients with a niche, and although most of the sites you look at of ours may not look like they've got a specific niche, what we have done over the years is work with them on building landing pages for certain sectors if they're doing any digital marketing or they're doing a push on LinkedIn. So that's also a really nice place to be, rather than just working with anybody that has money. If we say we work with doctors or we work with a certain sector, it's really easy then to show a real understanding, empathy. We've done the same. We've come from a general background of working with lots of different types of businesses to completely niching in financial advisors. And what I love there is that I can hit the ground running. I already understand I understand all the jargon. I understand everything that you do. And it really helps us kind of, manage to offer a much more efficient service that kind of really hits the spot.
We've got a couple of questions here for the PLOTT team. One from Rory. Dare I ask if AI is reducing the need for professionally curated video and photography? aside from the Teams page. Thanks for that clarification, Rory. But yeah, how do advisors, can they use AI generated imagery and video in their websites?
It's the same as using stock, really. It just has to be really well curated. I mean, I would beg the question that people can still sniff a fake a mile off. I tend to think with what you guys do, using your real team. I understand when people have, like I said, service, not they work from home. A lot of, like Fraser James are a great example. They work all remotely. That's what their business model is all about. But what we did do with those is we did a photo shoot in a serviced office with them. And that worked really well. But you need to show human. And for the client stories, sort of, you can probably get away. You can probably do, instead of doing client stories, because I understand as well that lots of clients don't really want to be interviewed. They don't really want to talk about it, particularly in the ultra high net worth space. We often find this. So therefore, maybe using a bit of stock photography AI, but having a real story, that can kind of work together. You just have to be a little bit careful, because as soon as you start to, any type of mistrust that can come in, clients look and think that looks like AI, it can just erode any of the goodwill that you've got. And that, so I tend to think you just have to be careful, because also you have loads of great stories, so why not use them? Why not lean into them?
Yeah, a couple of anecdotal examples of this from myself. There's a I can't remember if it's on Reddit. There's a game on Reddit, I think, it puts up two photos. One's a stock photo and one's an AI render, and it asks you to guess which is which. And yeah, that's hit and miss. I think the first time I was like 100% wrong, picking the wrong one all the time. But then the second time I had to go, I was getting slightly better at spotting it. I think there's a little bit of pushback on AI precisely because it's fake. So I would be careful. But the flip side of that, we had a client with a lifestyle photo of paddleboarders. Remember this one, Anna? And
yes,
the bikini was wrong. Can we change that? And then, the sea looks a bit cold. Can we change that? And doing that in Photoshop is, again, you're doctoring an image. So there's a certain amount.
That's cold out of interest.
Indeed, I'm not sure we did, to be honest. But oftentimes,
no, we changed it.
Did we change it? Oh, well, there you go. So that's the sort of thing that AI could be really good at. But you could have been using a real image and asking AI to make the changes. Obviously, we've got graphic designers that would do that. Let's say at a more consistent, without weird artifacts that you get from AI sometimes. So yeah, I don't think it's there yet.
I would avoid it.
Yes.
Yeah, at the moment. Yeah, I'd avoid it. Stick to what's real. I always say with anything with the website as well, go for less. Less is more. You know what? If you're starting up, go for a really solid single page. You don't need more than that. You do not need more. And maybe have a small photo shoot done at a coffee shop, and have a couple of nice. We do this for quite a few startup brands. You choose a coffee shop. You don't have to use our photographers, depending on where you're based, but get a professional in. Have a couple of people there that look like clients, and then what can happen then is you can introduce stock photography then, or stock video, but it just has to be well defined. You have to understand what it is that you want your, what potential, what are your client personas. We want to try and make sure that we kind of match that up, and it just needs to be well put together so it doesn't feel jarring.
No worries. I don't think we've got any more questions at the moment, and we're drawing to the end of this webinar.
I like Sean's comment though. Great presentation. Love the food references. I like that. Thanks.
Oh,
he has said here, food. I've seen hundreds of websites for advice firms. Many fall into the cows category.
Yeah,
so you need to be less cows and more chips. I think that's the conclusion.
Exactly that. Okay, well, Anna, thank you, and Mark, thank you so much for your time talking websites and brand. It's exactly what I like, and it's my wheelhouse. And I hope everyone's found that really helpful. Thank you for taking part in the questions. I'm sure Anna and the team will be sending on some insights from that later. And we will be sharing the video and the presentation after this finishes. But yeah, thank you very much for everyone joining on this one of the series in our series of Time and Money. And we'll be scheduling more for next year. But yeah, have a very nice time, and thank you very much, Anna and Mark.
No worries. Thanks. Nice. Speak soon.
Cheers all.
Bye bye.